So here's the flywheel out, and I reattached it to the clutch here. And here's my number one finger, which I adjusted down. And you can tell because these two are proud of the nut. This one's just about flush. But unfortunately, it has the opposite effect of what we would have expected. So as I rotate this nut counterclockwise, allowing this stud to suck down farther, this finger actually goes down. It doesn't adjust the pivot and pivot it back up. So while it's compressing the clutch material much better, it would actually give more slack to the pedal now, more gap between the bearing and the release bearing and the fork. So it doesn't make sense that anybody would have adjusted it this way before. So here we go. I can turn this a turn just using those little tips. That's half. That's full. So that's back to the spot where it used to be. So now these are all even again. But yeah, as soon as I start, and if I keep going, it goes higher. But that doesn't make sense because then it won't clamp the pressure plate at all. So now maybe this thing was just defective from the beginning. I think I'm going to punt. Well, as I've been already told by a lot of people, I should punt and buy a new clutch. So it's a sunk cost from so many years ago. It doesn't matter. But I wanted to see how this works. It is pretty cool how that works. Hole, but there's a threaded stud that creates a pivot for this finger, these fingers in here. And this finger is a big cast piece with this kind of machined in the end. And so that pivot goes up and down, and that's what, the throwout bearing presses on this and levers the friction, the pressure plate metal piece upwards to disengage the clutch. But so now the throw would be less. It might disengage. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe I'd run out of pedal travel now at the expense of pushing this correctly. So maybe something just else is wrong with it. Anyway, I think I'm giving up. Okay, so talking to Forum more, they did mention a procedure to adjust the flywheel fingers correctly for some heights, but that involves putting some correct shims instead of the friction plate. Supposed to be 0.33 inches, but these are 5/16 tooling blanks, so that's 0.3125. So a little bit smaller, but it's the closest thing I got. And the idea is you put this on there and then tighten it down against those shims and then make some measurements. So you measure where these fingers end up and you measure to the relative height of the face of the flywheel. They make a jig for that, I'm sure. In this case, I'm just going to measure the thickness of this flange and subtract that and come up with the right number. So as you tighten this down, these fingers go down. I think I showed that earlier. So I have this thing just set up on my mill so that I can use the mill as the Z height indicator. I'll just move the knee up and down until I can measure off of here and then measure off of over here or something like that. What else? Oh, so I have the flywheel sitting on top of a couple parallels. Otherwise, it would sit on some bolts that are on the back, but there's a nice machine surface on the back. But the bolts were proud, so I had to put some parallels underneath. Okay, well, we'll see how this goes. Okay, it's a little hard to see. I'm trying to make this so I don't bang into stuff. But what we have here is a dial indicator, which reads in 5/10,000ths of an inch, half thou per graduation. I can't rotate it to see it. Yeah, probably not. All right, so I have this on my mill, and my mill, if I tilt down a little bit. There's a handle here. This handle, if I turn that, it goes 50 thousandths of an inch each turn. Sorry. And so what I can do is I can count the number of turns it takes first to come off the top of the finger. So I move the mill around a little bit to find the highest point of the finger. Just right there. And then I zero out the gauge on my handle. And then I can count the number of turns it takes to go up and then back down and touch off the top of this flange to give me an accurate count of what the measurement is. So first I count upwards. So I did this once already. So it should be 23 turns to get up to the top of this. Then I should be able to move across. So a good thing about a mill is it stays very level and accurate across its entire travel. And I get down to a point where I can then touch here on this, actually on the back of this flange so I don't hit the bolt with the little tip. And then I come back up. So that's this way. 1, 2, 21, 22, 23. All right, so we'll just call this, I could keep counting and subtract, but I'll just call this starting from 0 again. So now we go 1, 30 plus 48 thousandths. Now we do a little math. So each turn is 1.5 50 thousandths. So that'd be one. So it's half of 30 is 1.5 inches plus 48 makes it 1.548. Then it's 0.128 for the flange thickness, which I measured with a micrometer. That gives us 1.676. The decimal's in the wrong place. And that is about 200 thousandths short. So the spec's supposed to be 0.1895 with 0.33 shims. And so this is, yeah, a little over 200 thousandths short. And actually, it would even go lower if it had the right shim. So I would imagine this is almost a quarter inch shorter than it's supposed to be. All right, so this is the one I adjusted. I'm going to rotate this setup and now measure the one that I didn't adjust and see where that one sits. Maybe that one sits in the right spot, but we already know it doesn't clamp enough. Okay, here we are measuring the second spring finger. I moved things around. This one's a little easier to see what's going on. And we're going to measure from the high point on this finger to the flange right next to the bolt. And the flange is 0.128 thick. And we're going to see how close that gets to spec. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go up. This time the finger is quite a bit higher, so I think I only need to go up about 20 turns. And I'll come across and come down. And we'll just count the whole time. So let's see. So that's 1, 18, 19, 20. Okay, that's 20. Let's come over. Okay, I'm going to come back over here. And that just has to be sort of close. Then we're going to come down 20. 20 up, 20 down. We can start counting again from here. So we'll count until we now get there. So this is 1, 27, 28, 29, 30. And readjust this to come in. That spot looks pretty good. 35. Oh, there it is. 35 plus about 28. 28 and a half. We'll call it 28. Let me do the math on that. Okay, here's some math. So 20 turns up, 20 turns down, then down another 35 plus 28 and a half thousandths. That's 50 thousandths per turn. So 1 3/4 plus 20 thousandths is 1.7785. Add the flange thickness to that. You get a total of 1.9065. Spec is 1.895, so the difference is 12 thousandths. So what's that tell me? That tells me I'm spot on. So I'm guessing if I put the right shims in there, the extra 15 thousandths or so, then that would probably make that difference up at least. So it's almost exact. It's kind of amazing how exact that is actually. So these fingers are adjusted to the right height. There is no need to adjust, but it doesn't explain why the clutch releases so fast uh, when the pressure plate's in there. So either the plate really is worn, or maybe these are the wrong spring finger geometries so that um, they don't compress. Like maybe it's really supposed to be where this number one is, but then the geometry of the finger is wrong, so it should be higher up to make the actual spec. Anyway, I suspect something is just wrong, and well, I think it's off to ordering new parts. Well, that was fun.